Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very warm welcome to you all. I'm absolutely astonished at how many people we've managed to cram into this hall. It's just delightful to see. I mean, I suppose as well, school... You can't hear me, sorry, is that better? Better? Okay, a bit clearer, thank you. School night too, so I'm very impressed. And I know that probably some of you told your partners you were just popping out for a pint of milk. But congratulations, you've managed to find your way into a Reform UK meeting. Very well done. And this really is an amazing turnout. So, welcome and congratulations. If I didn't know better, I would have thought some of you were trying to avoid the alternative of staying in and watching BBC Question Time. Perish the thought. Okay, it's lovely to see so many familiar faces and obviously quite a few new faces as well, which is absolutely delightful, even if you are pretending to have accidentally walked in. Okay, so a very, very warm welcome to Guildford Rugby Club on a cool October evening. The nights are drawing in, but we can offer you a genuinely warm welcome, enhanced notably by the presence of a Reform big hitter and local man, Mr. Richard Tice. It's a delight to have Richard here in ebullient form. Richard, or as he's more commonly known locally, the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, is giving generously of his time this evening to tell us a little bit about what he's up to in Westminster with Zia and Nigel and Sarah and everyone else. So we're very grateful and we're looking forward to hearing from you, Richard. I should probably also introduce myself, for those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. My name is Graham Drage, and I am the Reform Chair for Guildford, more commonly known locally as the Shadow Foreign Secretary. In the time-old tradition of these things, I should say that I've got absolutely no aspirations in that area. Now, just to confuse things, I was the chair of Godalming up until last year. So I stood against the then Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, more commonly known locally as the Chancellor of Chaos and Family Business, Wrecker. However, I moved over to Guildford earlier this year, and Godalming is now being ably managed by my co-chair this evening, Alex Roebuck. And you'll be hearing from Alex a little bit later on. So we're really looking forward to that. I should also say, keep in mind, you're all surrounded by a great many chairs this evening, and they're brilliant executive members. And there's also definitely some people here tonight who are here to sound us out, to see if we're a party who can be relied upon, by which I mean anxious Tories. So you can sort of spot the Tories because they're a little bit like political vegans sniffing a bacon sandwich. They will definitely be rehearsing their defection speeches in the mirror if you pop into the comfort rooms. So that's the best way to spot them. And they're very, very welcome here tonight, I have to say. Always assuming they're not ex-Boris Johnson supporters. Okay, Reform chairs. Yeah, without exception, genuinely talented and dedicated people from a wide variety of backgrounds. So we've got geophysicists, we've got financial advisors, lawyers, accountants, we've got mining executives, we've got one or two civil servants, public servants, so people who effectively are on the inside already, which is fantastic news, because obviously with the local elections fast approaching, we need those people on the inside. Yeah, well maybe, yeah, they might be delayed another year, but that moment is coming. And if you think Kent Doge found some interesting things, you just wait till we take over Surrey County Council. Yeah, 98 million. £98 million on home-to-school transport in Kent. I can only imagine what we're going to find in Surrey. Now, I travelled back in the day from Normandy Ash to Guildford to school on the back of my dad's moped, and I wore a cork helmet which left a red ring round my forehead for the rest of the day. So yeah, I'm coming at this slightly differently. Anyway, the local elections, I don't need to remind any of you, were due to take place in May of this year, and they got postponed for 12 months as part of the Labour government reorganisation, something on which they've admitted they've done absolutely no cost-benefit analysis, a pretty extraordinary admission, further underscoring our view that it was just an act of political recklessness. And it will only defer this drubbing which this appalling government are going to get, whether it's in 2026 or 2027. Now, setting aside the slightly more humorous comments for a while, I did just want to talk about a serious matter. It's an anecdote, actually. Last year, when I was the Reform Chair for Godalming, just before the general election, I was approached by an elderly couple who wanted some reform boards for their front garden, the sorts of boards that you put on a stand and display the party who you support. So it was very hectic, like a lot of chairs. We were all running around madly. So I rushed over to Ash. I thought, I'm just going to drop off the boards and then I'm going to be on my way. Anyway, I was greeted by this elderly couple, and the lady came out. She was called Margaret, and she reminded me of my mother. So she was slight of frame, clear blue eyes, and she clearly had something she wanted to say. So she started her little speech, and she talked to me about, as she saw it, the steady erosion of the UK's living standards. She talked about their personal challenges of heating their homes. She talked about the strain that they saw on the NHS, which they paid into all of their lives, and how ordinary working people were being pushed to the margins. She genuinely feared for her children and her grandchildren's future. And I felt very sorry for this lady. And I stood there and I listened to her passionate words, and I realized as she came to the end of them, she'd actually almost moved herself to tears. So we paused for a second, and then she reached out to steady herself, and she put her hand on my arm, and she looked up at me, and she said 6 words which stuck with me. She said, "And we're not racist, you know." And it caught my breath. It absolutely caught my breath. I was speechless. So I reached down and I hugged this beautiful old lady, and I told her she had nothing to apologize for. She was just a decent elderly lady who was wanting to look after her family's future and make sure that the country which she and her husband had invested in was left in good hands after they moved on. So it was no soundbite. It was a very moving moment for me. And I think that's why we're here tonight, because this country is full of people like that elderly lady, decent, ordinary people who've been told to sit down, to be quiet, and to feel ashamed for wanting the best for their families and for the country they love. Now, over the last 8 weeks, we've had a by-election in Guildford, as a lot of local constituencies have. And we had an amazing candidate, who actually I'd like to pay tribute to tonight, Dale Lehman, in the far left-hand corner. Dale ran an amazing campaign. We could have done better, but it was not for want of trying. And if I could clone Dale for next year's local elections, we would, 24 times over. So absolutely extraordinary, Dale. But the reason I mention that is because apart from leafleting and campaigning, we ran some street stalls every weekend at the bottom of Guildford High Street, and we had some amazing interactions. We also had some quite challenging interactions, and we had some superb volunteers, lovely, decent volunteers, who I heard being told by members of the public that they should be ashamed of themselves, or that, I can't remember the other phrase that they used, but it was words to that effect. And I feel like it's time for us to find our voices, ladies and gentlemen. If we're going to allow the use of words like disgrace and shame, we need to speak up more loudly. To my mind, what's shameful is saddling our children and our grandchildren with exploding national debt while failing to demand changes to the welfare system and pretend that 2.7 trillion is someone else's problem. What's shameful is an environmental policy which exports emissions to poorer nations, smugly congratulating ourselves on the benefits of net zero. What is shameful is branding the desire for proper control of our borders as racist, instead of recognizing the basic duty of a government is to safeguard its taxpayers and protect its public services. And finally, and this one is very close to my heart because I was a small business owner for 25 years, and I regard it as shameful that through inaction, small and medium-sized businesses and business owners have been allowed to be strangled by the highest tax and regulatory burden in 70 years. So it's shameful that people feign surprise at this when growth and productivity collapses. If there is any shame, it's in keeping this broken system alive, and one day those people will have to explain to their children why they oppose the only party offering real change, Reform UK. Reform UK are a positive, upbeat and broad-shouldered party. We believe in embracing common sense, we believe in conviction, and we believe, given appropriate action, Britain's best days could still lie ahead. We believe in lifting people up, not in putting them down. And we believe, and this one's important as well, in giving the next generation the same freedoms and opportunities that we were blessed with. And I know there's a number of people in the audience tonight who are under 25, and that message goes out to them. Reform are here to support you. We are here to rebuild confidence, to restore pride, and return power to the people who've worked hard and paid a lifetime's worth of taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a call to arms. It's not even a call for a verbal confrontation. It's simply a call for courage, for unity and action, to stand up, to speak up, and to shape the future that we want. Okay, you'll be pleased to know the diatribe is almost over. We need to turn our attention to the main event of the evening. Richard, a very warm welcome to Guildford and Godalming. MP for Boston and Skegness, originally, however, a Farnham lad, so technically one of our own. A man who made his name in business long before politics, a self-made entrepreneur who built one of the UK's largest property funds. He's been thrown out of the BBC more times than most of us have been invited in. He once cycled from London to Paris in less than 24 hours for charity, and knowing Richard, that probably included a few media interviews along the way. And whether you agree with him or not, Richard, you can't deny, he says what he thinks, he means what he says, and he's done more to shake up British politics in the last 5 years than most career politicians manage in 50. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Richard Tice.